Yo, what's going on, guys? Welcome back to another episode of Raw Faith. I think this is episode 4, if I had to put a number on it. Crazy, I'm forgetting. We're only 4 episodes in. I'm already forgetting what number we're on. But today we are going to be talking about pride versus humility. And this is actually from somebody, Vas, I don't know his name, how to pronounce it, VAS on Twitter. He actually replied to one of our past episodes, I think episode 1, and said he wants to hear an episode on pride. So today we're going to be diving into, our experiences with pride. Obviously, it's very prevalent in both of our lives, in everyone's life. If you're saying it's not, then you're a liar. But what I think is so unique is, the contrast of pride is humility. And the Bible talks about humility far more than it talks about pride. So we're going to be diving into humility as well. And what I think is super unique is we probably have the most humble guy I've ever met recording this thing with me. So, P-Dog, what's up, bro?
Well, humbleness came from lots of lessons of leaning into my own pride, my own understanding. So I try to be as humble as possible. No, I promise.
But this guy's way too humble. He's humble about being humble.
Oh my gosh!
You hear that? You're like, oh yeah, it's because I've leaned into pride. Gosh, the humility in being humble. That's crazy, man.
Ooh, really wasn't trying to do that.
The funny thing is, that was going to be my first question to you. I was going to put you on the spot, make you go against, get you uncomfortable, make you go against the grain of humility and describe why you're so humble. And somehow I thought you were going to have to pat yourself on the back as to why you're so humble. But no, you went against it and still found a way to remain humble, man. Wow.
Oh gosh, dude.
It's the second coming of Jesus. No, it's a joke. It's a joke.
Gosh. No.
Oh man.
Go ahead. You said you were going to ask me, how I was humble, how I am so humble.
That was literally how I was going to open it. I mean, you kind of gave your answer, but yeah, I mean, if you want to dive into why you feel you are so humble, because I mean, I'm not joking. I would say maybe even between you and Austin, Austin's just so down to earth, so humble. You'll never get that guy to boast about anything. Same thing with you, though. And I think what's crazy about you, I mean, and Austin as well, but what's crazy about you is just your potential that everybody can see in everything you can do, and still how just it's almost like I feel like at times I've almost faulted you for lacking confidence in the name of humility. I don't know if that speaks to you at all, but would love your perspective on all that.
For sure, dude. Yeah, I mean, it started when I was younger. Like my dad, he instilled that in me, just to always remain humble. Never boast. He would always get on to me when I did, versus give me more grace. He was a Marine, so he would discipline me pretty hard. But
he was a Marine.
Yeah, for sure.
You're like, yeah. Sure.
Nice. But yeah, a lot of it comes from growing up. That's just how I was raised. Not to boast, remain humble. And as I leaned into that, I did see a lot of good come from that. So I got positive reinforcement from remaining humble. It's kind of contradictory, but when I would remain humble when I was younger, whether through sports or any other accomplishments, I would get more respect from other people. So that was kind of like a positive reinforcement for me. And then now, the past couple of years, whether it be late high school through sports or now hosting events in person and competing, I definitely felt a sense of pride when I won the strongman competition and hosted the Houston event earlier this year.
Nice.
And which was good, but at the same time, every time I do feel that sense of pride, I do feel the fall that comes after in some way. And so that's kind of the negative reinforcement there. When I leaned into pride, I was like, okay, I don't want any piece of this. Like now, I just try to get rid of the pride as fast as possible, get rid of all personal glory, because I don't want that fall. I don't want that destruction, which I'm quoting very, very lightly here, biblical scripture. But yeah, that's kind of why I try to remain so humble.
Yeah. And for everybody listening, like when I say that, like that's not a joke. Like the most humble guy I've ever met. I'm not joking. Like I'm not saying that just because he's on this thing or he's my business partner, what have you. Like anybody that knows this guy would say the same thing with confidence. So I really wanted to get that across because I think like in a way we got some contrast here between just you and me alone. Like like I've definitely gone more the side of pride in the name of confidence, a lot of ego. And I've had to like tone it back, whereas you've almost had to like tone it up. And we're kind of like refining each other, meeting in the middle somewhere,
For sure.
at the good spot. But we're definitely going to be diving in heavily to what the Bible says. But I think it's just really cool the contrast we do have here because I've learned a lot in the name of pride, and I think it's to just get vulnerable right out of the gate here. Like I do think a lot of it is social media.
Hmm.
You are rewarded for being prideful on social media. Like guys posting in front of their Lambos or guys posting, how much money they've made or the women or, the bodies, whatever, like all these things that are getting posted, it's all like glorifying oneself, If there's no acknowledgement of God given, God gave me the breath in my lungs to be able to produce this income or whatever, like if there's no acknowledgement of God, like that's all a breeding ground for pride. I truly believe that. So I think for me, like creating on social media and producing, like, in the beginning, like it was something where it was like, hey, look at me, follow me for what I'm doing. Like that was, the beginning, that was the motive. And it was also the motive because, I graduated high school. I didn't have anyone who really supported me. Like I, you know, graduate high school at 17, baseball canceled due to COVID. And then it's like, okay, I'm not going to go to college because I believe in an entrepreneurial route, and here we are, 4 years later now, which is absolutely crazy to say, but here we are 4 years later. And, but like when no one believes in you, it's like, all right, I got to like get people to like look at me, believe in me, support me, like see what I'm doing. Like I got something to prove. I got a chip on my shoulder. And that was absolutely my motivation. And it's always funny how I keep turning like all my growth back to Elevate, because that has absolutely been how I've grown. And I think that you can almost relate to this with Elevate being just like a growth vehicle for your own self and self development. Even on my walk this morning, 75 hard walk, I was thinking about it of like the better we make Elevate, the better we make ourselves. Because I've been thinking about like me, you, Austin, for example. We are on every Bible study, 3 Bible studies a week. We are on every single coaching call. We run every challenge from the front. Like we do everything Elevate, and it's all like it's not easy shit. 4-day fast, 75 hard, like multiple hours in the Word with other guys, but it's like we're reaping the fruits of it. Like
100%.
we are growing like crazy. Not to get prideful, but it's easy to see, even when I look at you or look at Austin, like not even looking at myself, like it's easy to see your guys' growth. And so going back to my point of, I really think Elevate was the reason I was able to start operating out of a different place from I have something to prove to like I have men to serve. Because Elevated gotten to a point where I was like I can't keep, what do I have? What am I trying to prove? Like I have guys who are looking to me to lead. I have guys who are counting on me, to come through for them. Like, and I'm doing this all out of a selfish motive of, I want to drive a Lamborghini or make hundreds of thousands of dollars because I want to, say F you to all those people who doubted me. Like what,
Yeah.
like how silly is that motive of operating out of? Like, that's so childish. And so, yeah, I mean, very long winded there, but it's crazy to see Elevate as the growth vehicle. point number one that I want you to speak on, and it's also crazy, just how I've grown in that way. But yeah, talk to me about Elevate being the growth vehicle for you, because I've seen you grow a ton through it.
Yeah, I mean, for sure. Going back to what you were saying though about how much it's helped us grow alone, and even though like it's our product that we sell, such a unique dynamic because most business owners like aren't going to use the product as much as we will. Like this is our community, and it's forging us to be better men constantly. Every time we build it, scale it, use it, etc. So I mean, I'm grateful that the more we do progress this thing, that we're just going to grow as well. But I mean, dude, I've grown exponentially since joining. Standard of life has raised exponentially. I joined, of course, as a regular member last year. For anyone who's listening, or in 2022 actually, and just needed men around me, and I got just that, and got a like-minded community, got a like-minded group of men. Started getting on calls with guys. Started getting in on the challenges, all of the above, and now just as one of the co-owners of this things on the business side, just the more we scale it, the more we grow it. I'm growing. We're diving deeper into harder and harder challenges every time I turn around. I mean, we just did a 4-day fast, which is one of the hardest things I've ever done. But I mean, because of this standard of life, dude, like I'm now just doing these competitions, growing deeper in my faith, all areas of life, just no pun intended, but have been elevated.
Yeah, it's so cool to see. Like it really is just, we got them off a 96-hour fast, turn right around January 1st into 75 hard. Like, and we got 40 other guys doing it with us. Many of which who did the 4-day fast. Like, so cool to see, dude. And it's partially on me. Like, I'm thinking like, oh my God, we got 8 events this year. Like, we got all these challenges. Like, man, we're going to need a second to breathe at some point. And then I was just like, nah, like, fuck it. Let's ride. But let's turn back to pride versus humility here. Because I know we got a lot to dive into. So in just like researching this thing for this episode and prepping, like the Bible talks about humility so much versus pride. And I thought that it was just crazy to see that, like how lopsided the Bible references humility. Like there's so much about humility. And I recently read through Proverbs, as you know. And I mean, riddled with humility and also riddled with, talks of pride being such a downfall, like you were saying. So I'm just going to rip some key pieces of scripture around pride real quick that stuck out to me as I was just picking this thing up. But what the Bible says about pride, Proverbs 16:18, and these are all NIV. Pride goes before destruction, a haughty spirit before a fall. And this is something that, I mean, you already mentioned that one, lightly referencing scripture here. Like you had mentioned that, with Houston event, playing in that, kind of the first big thing you did, coming in as a partner of Elevate. That's like the first major task you had was to plan an event. Because I knew you had a passion for events and everything, but you're saying you've just felt the fall after the pride, and man, there's no doubt about that. There's no doubt about that, and I think like something I really want to highlight is social media aspect. So there's this concept that I always reference back to of who are you projecting that you are versus who are you actually. And PD gave a really good sermon on this. Shout out to Peak City Church, PD Kender, but he was saying there's someone that you actually are and there's someone that you're projecting that you are. And social media, I think, really distances that gap of who we are and who we're projecting. Like, we're having an amazing holiday, when not everybody has great holidays. Like people have bad holidays, even for me, experiencing a family member in the ICU this holiday, like last year, same deal. My aunt, she ended up dying. around Christmas. Like
Hmm.
some holidays just aren't fantastic, but social media, you got to continue to project, oh, everything's great, everything's good.
For
So
sure.
I think it just like can really distance this gap from who we are and who we're projecting.
Hmm.
And so who we're projecting, like I said before, is that, follow me, look at me, prideful self. And then who we actually are, we're humbled in the name of the Lord, right?
Yep.
Like we know where we stand back here of who we actually are. So, just as that distance kind of furthers, like imagine that fall and you see it in big figures, like you see it all across the world's landscape. So just such a verse that's so big in today's world. And you're even referencing your life. I know from my life as well. So one big focus of mine to combat pride is literally just vulnerability, raw faith. Get on here. There's no pride in my struggles and my suffering. I can't sit here and tell you that I've struggled with projecting a version of me who wasn't me on social media, and be prideful about it. No,
Yeah.
so I just try to be as authentic and as vulnerable as I can to close that gap of who I am and who I'm projecting. Like that's one huge way that I really have combated that in the social media space where I am trying to grow. And people literally press the follow Matt Moore button. Like I'm trying to get as many people to do that as possible. So it's such a weird dynamic, but my heart is in the right spot, and I know that now after so much work. But such a big verse to kick it off here, dude.
100%, brother. 100%. For me, I've kind of touched on it already, but just combating that pride. Honestly, preparation before anything that I know I'm going to go into that I could feel a sense of pride from, whether that's hosting an event, accomplish something through a competition, or anything like that.
Running an Ironman.
Yeah, I mean, that was honestly between the House of Steel event in October and the Ironman. Like, those are two that I brought intention into from the beginning. Like, okay, these are more than likely going to go well. The House of Steel event and the Ironman competition, I know it's going to complete that. Like, I just want to ensure that my heart is in the right place, and just let myself know beforehand that like there is going to be a temptation to feel a sense of pride after this. So for me, just prepping up and going into it with that just awareness, and then number two, just afterwards, ultimately just giving glory to God. Getting that glory away from myself at all costs, because that pride, like we've talked about here, the fall is going to come afterwards.
Yeah, and we got so many more examples to get through here. Oh, such good stuff. So next verse, that again, back to Proverbs here, Proverbs 29:23. Pride brings a person low, but the lowly in spirit gain honor. What do you feel that means?
Well, it sounds very similar to Luke 14, 11, I believe, which is those who are exalted will be humbled, and those who are humbled will be exalted. I was actually reading something along these lines in the Becoming a King book last night. And he was talking about just take the lowest seat at the table as many times as you possibly can. That will never fail you. Just constantly humble yourself. And he said, take the lowest seat until it's impossible not to, which I think is really cool. It's something that I've wrote down and tried to memorize over the past 24 hours. Just super actionable thing that I can carry into the day to day. Just take the lowest seat until it's impossible not to.
Yeah, I mean, I quickly Googled here about taking the lowest seat, referencing the Bible, because I definitely remember that. That's in Luke 14 as well.
Yeah, I think that's what I just quoted.
Taking the lowest seat. Yeah, but I thought you were quoting whatever. But yeah, 100%. Take the lowest seat until you're just getting promoted to the seat by others. Essentially, is the kind of the point of that I took away when reading that.
Yeah, absolutely. That's what I got from it too.
For sure. Next verse I got here, James 4:6. But he gives us more grace. That is why Scripture says God opposes the proud, but shows favor to the humble. I mean, same theme here, like same thing about pride. It's nothing different than the first two. God opposes the proud, but shows favor to the humble. And that's the consistent theme around pride. I think that it's so clear cut and straightforward. But what I really want to dive into as we continue is, worldly examples of how we can highlight this pride in our life, seek it out, see it, understand it, get rid of it, be proactive, kind of what we're saying. So as we continue throughout, that is the theme. That's the point that we're getting across this entire episode. Humble yourself, you will be honored. Do not humble yourself, you will fall.
For sure.
That is it. So next verse I got here, 1 Peter 5:5-6. In the same way, you who are younger, submit yourselves to your elders. All of you, clothe yourselves with humility toward one another. I think that's something to point out there. Because God opposes the proud, but shows favor to the humble. It's referencing back again. Humble yourselves, therefore, under God's mighty hand, that he may lift you up in due time. So we got it to humble ourselves to God, and he'll lift us up if we are humble. But I think something so unique here is it's talking about clothe yourselves with humility toward one another, even
Right.
each other. We are called to love each other, of course, one of the, big commandments. But I mean, what's your take on that? And just from I know it's like you said, how you've been raised, but how do you feel you've humbled yourselves around others? Because I feel you do it so well. And I feel it also allows you to empathize with people so much better. And I'll just give why I feel I have struggled in the past. I feel like I've gotten a lot better, but it was out of a place of pride and ego where I thought that my opinion and what I was going to say was better than theirs. So I didn't have to humble myself to listen. So that didn't allow for any empathy. That didn't allow for any understanding. That didn't allow for any learning. That didn't allow for any connection, with someone else. And I do think it was partly the social media that caused me to do this, but also another part is building a business. When you're getting paid to speak into people's lives, you get paid to speak into people's lives, so
Absolutely.
that can really put yourself, that can elevate you in a poor way in your own mind, in a prideful way, to where it's like, oh, I'm making money to say things to people. And I think that definitely, happened in my life 100%. I think I've done a lot of work to combat that and humble myself. And, it's just been taking consistent action in the word and such. But curious, because you've always been so good at, stepping into any room with anyone. And I feel like just hearing everyone out, wanting everyone to feel so seen and heard. So curious, you're just, how? Give us the sauce.
Well, I mean, I think it just goes back to trial and error. I've tasted and seen the other side of it. Walking into a room and feeling pride for myself, looking at what I have that others may not, instead of humbling myself. And I've done that a lot in the past, whether that be a gym, I walk in and I'm more jacked than somebody else, or just anything in general. I'm more confident, more athletic, whatever it is. I would let that get to me for the sake of boosting my own self-worth in my own eyes. And that was the main reason that I would ever do that, to compare myself pridefully to somebody. But going back to what you said, the more I did that, the more closed off my own heart became, and the more distance I became from everybody else that I did that to. There was just no connection, no relation to anybody that you compared yourself to pridefully. So as I came into it humbly, and as you humble yourself for everybody else, basically you just put yourself on the same platform. You just see everybody eye to eye. And I've felt that the more I do it, I've felt that positive reinforcement, just more connection, more relatability. And as you mentioned, I do try to Wait, what did you say at the beginning about what I do in every room?
Just really humble yourself. Like you know, make everyone feel seen. Like you're saying,
Yeah,
it's a
scene
level playing field when you step into a room.
for sure. I do try to make everybody. I try to do. That's something I want to do, because I know I want it myself. I think that's why. Um, I know I want to be seen, so I try to make everybody else feel the same. But I mean, going back to just being humble, it was definitely trial and error, and just when I let that pride creep in, the relatability, connection, gone.
I think something big here is, you know, pride is the band-aid over the bullet hole that is insecurity.
Yeah.
Like ego, we can replace the word ego with pride. Like ego is the band-aid over the bullet hole that is insecurity. Like you're saying, I am taking pride in myself because I do not feel worthy of myself. Like, in man, that ain't that the truth.
Hundred
Like when
percent.
you don't have a firm foundation or an identity that is valuable in God, you cannot humble yourself. You have to try to prop yourself up time and time again with these worldly things, with filling your ego, you know, with feeding that ego, feeding that pride. Obviously, we're using pride and ego kind of interchangeably here. I think it is interchangeable. Um, but yeah, it is the band-aid over the bullet hole that is insecurity. Like there is no doubt about that. And I think so many people, you know, they identity hop. I've kind of seen this as guys join Elevate and they're like, hey,
Mm.
I'm ready to like pursue my faith. You know, we've all kind of identity hopped. Like, and you've even, if you guys haven't heard Peyton's story, go back to his interview of Sharon getting vulnerable around losing his little brother so much. But you know, you in that talked about your identity hops of just losing an identity, gaining an identity, losing an identity,
Yep.
gaining an identity, losing identity. And so many people of today's world, like we do that. And I'm not saying that like I'm not on an identity that I shouldn't be on right now. Like I'm sure I'm taking, you know, pride and value from an identity that is not in God right now that I shouldn't be. And I
Mm.
guarantee I'm going to, you know, fall. Like
Yeah,
you know, it may be a blind spot right now in my life, but God will show me. He will strip me of it and he will show me.
for sure.
But what I'm trying to say is like, we will build ourselves up in the name of being an athlete, in the name of, you know, until a major injury happens and then you're done. Like you've experienced so, you know, countless stories of that, you know, Division 1 athlete, ACL torn, UCL for you, like countless times of that, building ourselves up in the name of, you know, being an entrepreneur, and then business fails. Boom, building ourselves
Right.
up. And I can even speak to my life personally. This is about my mom. Like she really built herself up in an identity in being a mom,
Mm.
and in being a wife. And boom, divorce. Boom, Mitch and I move away. Like luckily, she still has my little sister. You know, so she is still in that mom role because I can't imagine what she, you know, what would be left, I guess, if she didn't have my little sister to parent right now, because she takes so much, you know, pride and value in being a mom. I think in
Yeah.
a very, you know, humble way. Like, but you know, we have these identities, and even, you know, getting vulnerable around your story. Like, I'll let you share this, but identity and older brother, losing your little brother, like boom, fall. Like, and I
Right.
think we will just identity hop time and time again until we land on faith, until we open up this thing that is the Bible and say, huh, I'm a bit curious about what this thing is. And then we start finding an identity that can't be taken from us, an eternal
Mm.
identity of son of God. And so I think that's why it's so big to, you know, fall on the identity that is Christ, because it's an identity, the only identity, husband, wife, brother, all that stuff can go. It's the only identity that cannot be taken. So curious your perspective, because I know I've experienced the identity false. Like, you know, for me, college baseball was everything. COVID hits,
Mm.
cancels it, boom, baseball's gone. You know, nothing left. So
Yeah.
let you
It's
take it from
crazy.
there.
It's crazy. Every time you're going to rely on yourself and your own understanding will always fail you. Uh, and living that way of, you know, pinning your own identities, um, to what is worldly, whether it be an older brother or D1 athlete, or best student in school, whatever that looks like, entrepreneur, all of those can be stripped away from you. And, a lot of them will throughout your timeline. You'll have people pass away, you'll have career timelines change, etc. And that leads to a very exhausting life. And I experienced that early on. 13 years old, I lost my little brother. I lost that identity as big brother for at least a little while. I have a younger brother now, named Baker, but felt the fall from that, took a massive hit. And then later on, as Matt mentioned, I was going to pursue a javelin scholarship for track and field through javelin, and I had a UCL injury.
Shout out Nick Saban. Roll Tide.
Gosh, bro. That makes no sense. He's not even the track and field.
Anybody who watched your interview is going to love that, bro.
Oh, just circling back around to that one.
Yeah. It's the follow-up jokes for the
That's
OGs,
right.
for the real ones.
That's hilarious.
Sorry to just interrupt, but man, I had to.
No, that was much needed.
Go ahead, Doug.
But
Go ahead.
You keep placing your main identity in these worldly identities and place your security in those, and they're going to constantly fail you over and over again. And so I finally found the one identity that was constant and that I could find rest in, and that I could find confidence and security, true security. And that was just being a son of God. That's the one that's never going to go away. And I was like, okay, I want that one. Like, this one's not going to get stripped of me.
And I mean, going back, pride goes before destruction, a haughty spirit before a fall. And so I think the question that people listening are probably asking right now is like, well, can I not take pride in, being a successful business owner? Can I not take pride in being an older brother, or being a good husband, being a good father, being a good brother? Like, can I not take pride in the work that I do? I don't think the answer is you can't take pride in what you do. I think it just can't be above God.
Yeah.
And I think you have to put God in the proper place of, thank you, God, for this relationship that I have in my life.
Mm-hmm.
God gave us the breath in our lungs. And so, I think that that's such a big thing to understand is I don't think God wants us to be like, oh, our relationships are terrible, or keep our relationships terrible so we have no no pride about them or whatever.
Right.
I think he just wants to be in the right spot when it comes to those relationships, and he wants to be glorified with the best in everything that we do. Shout out Proverbs. So I think that, with those relationships, with those identities that we're kind of talking about, it's like they all come to your identity in God. Like, that is the root of all of those other identities.
Absolutely.
Like, you have an identity in God, and he has given you all the rest of that stuff that we just umbrella there. So it's like putting him in the proper place. I believe it's how we humble ourselves, but still, take a sense of pride in who we are. Because I do think there is a level of that. Like, does that make sense? Curious your take. Somebody listening may be like, no, but I don't know. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I mean, I totally agree. Making sure that you give him the glory first, that identity in him is first. I was doing a little bit of research before this, and it says the biblical definition, one of them, of pride is giving ourselves the credit for something that God has accomplished. And that would be, of course, putting ourselves first. When we give glory to God first, I think that's going to just get rid of any sense of pride that we have. I think feeling accomplished for the actions that we take from the steps that God is giving us, I think that may be worthy and righteous. I mean, I may be wrong there. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I do think there is I do feel God wants us to feel a sense of worth, but I feel he wants us to feel a sense of worth in our identity in him. So for me, it's like, why am I taking these actions that I'm taking? Like, I think it just comes back to the condition of the heart, the root cause, whatever we want to say. Like, I think it comes back to that. So why are you doing what you're doing? Are you out there taking the actions to, pad your bank account? Are you out there taking the actions to build yourself up? Or are you out there taking the actions to, glorify God and to build the kingdom? Like, if so, the main objective, get into heaven. If we go back to that, like, that's the only objective here on this earth. Like, and get
Right.
as many people in there with us as possible. Peak City, make heaven crowded. Love that saying
Yeah.
on the wall. It's huge, man. So like those are the two objectives: get in, get as many in as possible. Like that's what we're all here to do. So
Absolutely.
through our own unique way, of course. But so yeah, I do feel God wants us to feel a sense of worth, but it's in Him. It's in the works that He is doing through us. And so many people, they're like, oh, but Matt, like I put in those long hours. Like I, built that business. I put in the work to get that girl and build a relationship and have the healthy marriage, like have the
Right.
kids or whatever. It's like, okay, great, but who gave you all the opportunity? Who gave you the breath in your
Yes.
lungs as you woke up today? Like who gave you the energy? Who kept you from illness? Like who sent their only son to die on the cross so that you could wake up today? Like come
Yes.
on. Like even if God does nothing in our life beyond sending his son to die for us, like that's all that we weren't even owed that, but like if he does nothing beyond that, like that fine, cool. Thanks,
Seriously.
great. So like I think we just expect so much of God in the name of pride, and it's crazy, myself included. I'm not excluding myself, but
Right.
like I think Job, for example, like everyone's like, why do bad things happen to good people? Well, one, there was only one good person, Jesus. But we're reading through Job in the Elevate Bible study, and you see it in his life. Like he was good, he was sinless, good person. Devil's like, I'm gonna tear him down. God's like, good luck. But
Yeah.
you see Job, the condition of his heart, he starts taking pride. He starts, ignorantly putting himself above God, demanding things of God. Like, God, give me an answer. Like, I didn't do anything. And he's saying, God, if you come convict me of a sin, I will wear it honorably. Like, and I'm sitting here reading this, and I'm like, no, you would not. If God comes and convicts you, like it's like just minimizing who God is. Like, and I think we just do that so much, and we want to minimize God when it's convenient, and we want to maximize Him when it's also convenient. You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely. The mountaintops, you want to minimize them. When you're at those low
Oh
moments,
yeah, pride, baby.
for sure, dude. That's crazy.
Before we carry on to humility and this story of Jesus and talking about the devil, I mean, we got so much more here. There's one thing that you said, and this doesn't really relate to pride, but I think it's just unique to our lives. Something we can really relate over is you really want to make people feel seen. And I know it's because you said you wanted to feel seen, which is honestly crazy that you feel that way because, like, I mean, just one physical stature, 6 foot jacked, like you are not gonna not be seen. And then just said, the gifts that God has given you, like definitely to shine a light in this world. But something that going a different path with making people feel seen. How much do you feel of little kids, for example, Cooper, Baker, in your life has helped you to make people feel seen? Because I have a little sister who's 6, maybe 7 at this point. I don't know, can't keep track of them. And then a brother who's, I don't know, 5, around those ages.
Yeah.
One was born in 16, one was born in 18, so whatever that is. But I know like little kids, like all they want to do is just feel seen, like just feel seen, feel heard. Like that's it. That is it. And especially when you're this older brother, like you and I, we have this unique thing where we can relate to having siblings that are so much younger because we are so much older,
Right.
And so I think it's something that they just like love us so much and they want to be seen by us so much. And so, yeah, I mean, speak to that from your perspective, because I think that has done a lot for me in helping people to feel seen.
It has done so much for me, dude. Whether it be my little brother Baker, or Cooper, or any other little kids that I'm around. Number one, my little brother, he's always trying to get my attention in anything that he does, whether it be just one push-up on the ground that is the worst form possible, or eating something that
Man,
not trying to knock him or
poor
anything.
Baker, bro. Sheesh.
Just trying to forge him, bro. Trying to forge him. But no, he comes up to me doing the push-ups, eating healthy. He just loves to show me all that he's doing. And those are small wins, of course, in my eyes, but it's helped me, truly look at everyone's wins the same. Like a win is a win, no matter whose eyes you're looking through. So, I mean, celebrate those just as that is. Celebrate those as though it is your biggest win. I mean, that's one of our statements on our credo statement, dude. I'm not exactly sure what number it is, but celebrate others' wins just as they are as our own. Yeah. So that's one lesson that it's taught me. I think that is the main lesson, honestly.
You gotta memorize that credo, man. Credo number 8. We
Number
celebrate
8.
others' smallest victories as if they are our own biggest wins.
Right.
Yeah, but I just thought that was a unique perspective there, and I think how we talked about another point that I had from something you said earlier before we just take a new page and move on is stepping into our room and seeing everyone on a level playing field. So if we really want to pull biblical lessons from this, like we can look at the Pharisees from the Bible. They thought that by adhering to the law, to God's law, that they were better than other people, and it showed. And that's why they really rejected Jesus, because it's like, nah, you're not changing the game now. Like, we've been playing by these rules, and we are better than these other people.
Yes.
If you change the game, that puts us all on a level playing field, and we are not having it. And so I think like stepping into the room and being able to humble yourself is seeing people, through the lens that God does, through the lens of Jesus. Like, is being able to see that it doesn't matter what you did yesterday. It doesn't matter if you went to church on Sunday or if you read your Bible this morning. You are no better than that guy sitting on the corner begging for money today, like in God's eyes. Like,
right.
So this world may lift you up, may pad your stats, pad your ego, whatnot, build you up on social media, but it's like God doesn't care about any of these metrics. So I think when we are measuring our identity and measuring our worth, I think it's very, very important to separate the metrics in which we are measuring and looking through that lens of how God views us. And I think that is genuinely only how you can love someone. Like, I don't think you can look at someone from a worldly perspective and love them, like genuinely love them, because we are all sinful. We are all broken. So it's like, if you think about parent to child, we don't have children, but we can really understand the parent to child love from God. And I even think in a way from our younger siblings who are so much younger than us. Obviously we didn't birth them, but and if any parents listen to this and they're like, Matt, you'll never understand until you have a kid. Okay, cool, great. But it's something to where like that kid makes a mistake, you don't care. You love them. Like they do something that you're a little bit upset about, forgiveness right away. Like, some people refer to it as like wrapped around the finger. It's like, yeah, absolutely. And like, that's how, we are with God. Like, think about that. So
good.
I think that you can't like genuinely love someone until you humble yourself and see them through the lens of God, because that is the only way you are going to be able to overlook, that brokenness. That's the only way you're only going to be able to reconcile, through some friction, through some arguments, and build a solid relationship is in the name of humility. And in looking through that lens in the name of humility, we want to not do that to other people, like, oh, we're better than them, whatever. But if you don't look at other people that way, you have to look at yourself in the same way then. Like, right. You know what I'm saying? Like, 100%. I love looking at people through the lens of God, because I'm like, I hope that's how they're judging me,
Right. Yeah.
So,
absolutely.
You can take your take on that, but I think it's just such a powerful thing to really conceptualize and think about, because we want to give grace for ourselves, but we don't want to give the grace for other people, and it's just so hypocritical sometimes.
It is, for sure. I think you encapsulated that perfectly. But the only thing that I have to say on that, really, is that the past couple months I've tried to condition my heart more and more towards that principle just by simply asking God through prayer to show me how to view everyone as you do. And I asked it for specific people as well, whether it be Reese, my girlfriend, or my mom, or you. I just ask God to allow me to see them the way you do. And it's helped so much, dude. It's helped with that connection, just that love that I feel towards them, forgiveness, all that you mentioned.
I feel like ever since I've truly, and I still got a long way to go here, of course, but ever since I've really been working on humbling myself, I'll say, like, I've been really able to view people in that light, in that way, because I like vision comes easy to me, right? And so like I can really see someone's potential, and it's to the point where I treat them as if they're at that potential, really. Like that
Yeah.
that is like, and I mean, you've experienced that, and sometimes that comes, in a bad way, but it's just literally, I see them at their highest self, and I hold them to that standard. I see it, like it's already there. It's already happened for me. Like it's so easy to see, for me. So I think it's just like a gift of mine, maybe, a spiritual gift. I don't know, but just being able to see people at their full potential, and see them through that lens, and it really helps you. Like when they make mistakes or mess up, it's like, no, I know where they're going. Like I know what God has in store for them. So it's just like kind of makes every mistake and blunder, sin, whatever, trivial. It's really easy to get past because I can just see that potential where they're going.
Okay. So you're saying that when you got rid of pride, like you were able to lean into that spiritual gift more?
Yeah, 100%.
Okay. That's huge.
100%.
Wow. That's powerful.
Yeah. 1,000,000%. Because if you're taking pride, you don't care about anyone else. It's a selfish thing. Like even in the episode I recorded with Matt, love versus lust. Like love is essentially at the core of that episode. Love is selfless. Lust is selfish. Like same thing here. Pride and humility. Like pride is selfish. Humility is selfless. So it's like if you are, taking pride, you're so self-absorbed. You're not looking at the potential in others. You don't care about the potential in others.
Right.
You care about yourself and in how you can build yourself up, all from a worldly vanity metric. Like that's just crazy. Like, it doesn't mean anything. That's just crazy. But let's go through humility here in terms of the Bible, because I know we got a lot to cover in a little amount of time here.
Right.
So I'm just gonna rip some verses in the name of humility. But first, I do just want to stick out. So it's hard to pinpoint like how often the Bible actually references humility because it does it sometimes in roundabout ways, whatnot. But just in doing research, 70 to 80 times in our newer English translations, NIV, NLT, like to where it's either directly references or kind of roundabout references. Obviously, that's all up to interpretation. Somebody may read it and be like, oh, this doesn't reference humility, but it references humility a lot is the point I'm trying to get across. And the number I really could come to, shout out ChatGPT, 70 to 80 times. So I just thought that was I think those stats are kind of cool. Like how often the Bible references money, like the most, I think, out of any topic. So I think when I hear those stats, it's pretty cool. And hearing the volume of humility is crazy. So this topic that we're talking about, very important. And I think the most important example out of the Bible comes from John 13. And I mean, dude, I'll let you give the story because I think you know it better than me. I got some of the scripture to reference here. But will you just kind of paint the picture of John 13 for us?
Yeah, absolutely. I'll go ahead and I can go ahead and read the verses. So John 13.
Yeah, go ahead.
John 13, 3 through 5. Jesus knew that the Father had put all things under his power and that he had come from God and was returning to God. So he got up from the meal, took off his outer clothing, and wrapped a towel around his waist. After that, he poured water into a basin and began to wash his disciples' feet, drying them with the towel that was wrapped around him. Man, that is so powerful. you see such a perfect figure. I mean, we think we're perfect and we think we're righteous at times and not just not worthy of doing some low level work or helping somebody out on the side of the road or whatever that looks like. But we see just this perfect being, Jesus, do some of the most humbling work is to get down on his knees, take off his outer cloak, take the towel that was around his waist, and wash his disciples' feet. It's such a humbling passage to read, such a powerful one.
Yeah. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, again, like I was telling Peyton before this episode, like this was kind of my first time coming into the full story of this. Still learning every day about the Bible myself. Obviously, it's a very big thing you hear about Jesus washing the feet of others. You hear that all the time, but
Sure.
I had never got into the story. And so, if I'm not mistaken, right, this was right before he's about to be crucified.
I believe so. Yeah.
So, I believe what I read was this was a Passover festival, and he's at the table eating with the disciples, and he gets up from the table and goes and washes the feet. But I think another big piece of scripture to point out is like this is right before he's about to be crucified. Like one of his, and he knows that they are about to turn on him. Like he knows, man, I wish
Judas.
I could. Yeah, he said that he knew, like in scripture around this, it said that he knew that the devil had already gotten to Judas. He knew that some other disciples, I want to say Simon, if I'm not crazy, was going to deny him, deny knowing him. Like he already knew these things, and he still gets down and washes their feet. Like adds a whole nother layer. And then after he's done, he says, now, like he knows where he stands. I, your Lord and teacher, like have washed your feet. You should also wash one another's feet. I have set you an example that you should do as I have done for you. And like, I mean, come on, like love your enemies, as yourself. Like he knows not that they're his enemies per se, but he knows they're about to just freaking turn on him, deny him. Like, imagine if we knew that, how would we respond? Like, how would we act in the name of pride? Where we'd blow up on that person, we'd call them out, we'd slander their name on social media, we'd reach out to everyone we know that knows them and, run their name through the mud, or we're going to get down on our knees in the name of, hey, we're all sinners here in the name of humility, and wash your feet. Like,
right.
It's such a powerful example from, like you're saying, the Most High, So I just had to. Go ahead.
I can't imagine the amount of courage that takes to love people endlessly, despite even him knowing what was going to happen, knowing that he was going to be betrayed by Judas, denied by Peter. That takes an insane amount of courage to just humble yourself and to love someone like that.
It's unreal to even think about, man. When you have so much power, and I think you have so much power of being Jesus, right? And so I think it's even going back to Luke 4, when we were on the fast recap, where the devil is tempting Jesus. Like Jesus has all the power, right? And the devil is tempting him. And Jesus does not fall into that temptation. Like even though, like the devil offers him essentially the entire world, like the kingdoms. He's like, they're mine to give. I'll give them to you. Like, here you go. If you just choose to follow me. And Jesus is just like, nah. Like, like just so much control, so much humility.
For sure.
And he has just the power. So it's crazy to see that, as man, we often seek power in the name of pride and ego. We seek that power. We seek money. But it's like the perfect man, the example that was set, did the exact opposite. He had all the power, and he sought the humility. He sought to get down on his hands and knees and wash the feet of others. Like he came at it from the entire, we're coming at it from down here, trying to pad our stats, fill our ego, whatever, by trying to power grab, money grab. He had the power, but he lowered himself down here and walked with us, and did these
Come
things
on.
for us. Like, it's insane, man. It's insane. It really is. And the Bible, it's crazy. But like I had said in the beginning, moving on from that story in the name of humility, just carrying on here, there was 8 verses in Proverbs that directly referenced humility alone. I thought that was crazy. Like, Proverbs, just lessons on lessons.
Yeah.
Like 8 verses that just directly referenced humility. And I mean, I won't read them. We've already read some of them just from the pride aspect. But I think one that I will read is just Proverbs 22:4. Humility is the fear of the Lord. Its wages are riches. Its wages are riches and honor and life.
Wow.
Humility is the fear of the Lord. Curious your take on that one.
Yeah, I was going to ask you the same thing. Honestly, I have when it comes to the fear of the Lord, I'm still learning a lot about it. I mean, there's another verse.
Me too.
The beginning of wisdom starts with the fear of the Lord. So I was going to come to you for some sauce here on that.
Yeah. I'm still trying to wrap my mind around fearing the Lord.
Right.
I think like as you're beginning in faith, it's all about love. God loves you, Jesus loves you. Like, that's kind of the entry message for churches, like trying to get people in. So I think like as we continue to grow, like fearing the Lord and reading the Old Testament, like seeing the wrath of God, seeing like I think it's so important to read the Old Testament and understand like what Jesus actually did for us. Like, these people who were sinning and then just dying. Like,
dude, it's insane.
God sending a flood to just destroy the world. Like, absolutely crazy. So I think like, reading the Old Testament and understanding like what Jesus actually is saving us from ourselves. So fearing the Lord is something that I think is tough for me to truly understand, but because we can't really fathom outside of this world, right? I think like trying to fear the Lord and understand is having to really get outside of ourselves and having to really get outside of this world and see a far bigger picture that we can even, tangibly wrap our minds around. Like, so yeah, but I think like to start, at least a foundational starting point of fearing the Lord is humbling yourself, putting him in the right spot. Pride is the opposite of fearing the Lord. Like if you are prideful, you are putting yourself above God, and you're just not fearing God if you're putting yourself above him. So I think it's even cool to think about my fear. I've really redefined fear in my life as desire to control. And I don't think that applies when fearing the Lord. You're not desiring to control God, but it really does apply when you think about fearing anything in this world. Is putting things above God. So it really does apply. So for anyone listening, like think about that. Anything you are fearing in your life right now, whether it's financial struggle, whether it's relationships falling through, whether it's I don't know what it is, but whatever you are fearing, you are just desiring to control that. You're white knuckling that so hard, and that's the opposite of faith. So, but yeah, this is unique. We'll have to do an episode on it, fearing the Lord.
Yes, we will.
So, other verses that really stick out in the name of humility. There's a bunch of verses that stick out, and again, it's all the same concept. I think James 4:10 right here is probably the best that sums it up. Humble yourselves before the Lord, he will lift you up. That's really the concept of pride versus humility, I think, going back to what I said in the beginning. Like, but it's so one-sided in the Bible about humility. Like, it really is.
It's crazy, dude. I didn't realize there was that much of a drastic difference between how much you talk about pride versus humility. I mean, I don't think there's a stat on here for how much it talks about pride, but it's probably double.
Yeah, I'm not sure, but I think it's I think it's kind of the thing of I think we often focus on what not to do, and we often focus on the consequences of our sin.
Hmm.
And it's like that thing of like, what you focus on is like what you attract, or like where your focus goes. It's like what grows, whatever you want to say.
Yeah.
It's almost like, when you're driving, or that lesson of pilots, like they know to look at the opening, not at the obstacle. So when you're
sure.
driving, you don't look at the obstacle, you look at the opening. So it's like
Definitely.
if you look at the obstacle, you're bound to hit it. So I feel like the Bible, with these lopsided things, like it's almost like look at humility more than you look at pride, and you'll be good. Like I guess. And something else that's cool is I sent you a podcast yesterday, and it was talking about like memory, and it was like essentially like the key to memory is just like reps. Like there's strategies you can go about, like memorizing stuff. Like this was just a portion of the podcast, great podcast, but it was just like reps. So, the Bible repetitiously reminding us, just like humility, 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 example here, example here, example here, example here, example here, example here, like millions of examples. And then faith, like how much does the Bible remind us of faith? Like I just read Hebrews 11 this morning, so I'm coming hot off of faith. But
let's go.
Just, like it just reminds us time and time again. And what it kind of takes me back to is a sermon from Petey where he was saying, like, if you want to remain strong in your boundaries, look at how a parent reminds a child. You're probably reminding Baker, he's your little brother, you're not his parent, but still in the same sense, you're reminding a child, like, hey, don't touch the stove. Hey, don't write on the walls. Hey, don't put that in your mouth.
Yeah.
Like, hey, don't do that. Like, don't do that. Don't do that. It's like, oh my God, does this kid ever listen? Like, you just got to tell him time and time again to stop doing stuff. Like, that's all kids.
Right.
So God in the Bible, like here, like, hey, don't do that. Hey, don't do that. Hey, don't do that.
For
like,
sure.
do this. Don't stop that. Like, that's exactly what it is. I feel like it's just that relentless reminder.
Yeah. And to be able to humble ourselves enough to realize that we still need those constant reminders, I think is a big thing as well.
Amen to that, dude. Amen to that. It's something like, for my grandpa, who's a pastor, been a pastor for like 40, 50 years. He wakes up, reads his Bible, gets in that word for an hour plus every single morning. The dude can quote scripture like it's the back of his hand. It's crazy. But every single morning, he's still in the word. It's like he knows he needs it, No matter how good of an understanding he develops. It's not something where he's measuring based on this world. I guarantee he can quote scripture more than 99% of people in this world. He's not measuring based on that. He's measuring based on his understanding of Jesus and who God placed him here to be. Like, so he just gets up every day and is relentless in his pursuit. Man, it's crazy.
Absolutely. So good. We got to put in those reps.
100%, dude. I think if I had to sum up how to humble yourself, it would be the reps of conditioning your heart. I really do. The reps, like getting into the word, praying, taking the acts of service, like those three, like the reps of those three, I think would be my formula to humility. Curious, just if you had to maybe put a label on it, maybe you agree with mine, but I think those three, conditioning your heart with the word and prayer and acts of service, getting just reps, continued reps of those three.
Yeah, I mean, I think you put it perfectly. First two, of course, bread and butter of faith, but acts of service as well. I think that's a big one. Just being able to serve others in light of God, and also serving with others. That truly will put yourself on an even playing field, like we talked about earlier, and allow you to be humble, allow you to see people eye to eye. So, I mean, I'm in full agreement with you, brother.
And I think that, there's a million ways to serve other people. Like, I truly do. Let's just get, like, real tangible for people around serving. I think this is why it's such a big thing you see in a church. Why people have, there's so many volunteer opportunities at a church. Many churches are doing mission trips to go serve other countries. They're going down to the food bank, to serve the hungry, like they're doing all these different things to serve, because they understand the growth in faith that lies in serving. Like
Absolutely.
Jesus got down on his knees and served his disciples right there at the final time of right before he's about to get crucified. Like that was the example. So I think, if you are involved in a church, get involved at the next level of serving, even if you're just smiling at the door saying, good morning, happy Sunday, what have you. And I think what's cool is we also have people serving inside Elevate, leading Bible studies, leading calls, like just wanting to serve and give back to the community to help other guys. But I guess let's just go outside of church. I imagine we have some people who are also on the fringe of faith, let's say, who maybe aren't as involved in church, aren't ready to take that step. Like, how would you say they could go about serving just in their day-to-day lives, maybe the people around them, or what are some tangible actions you feel that they could take to serve?
Yeah, so many ways, dude. So many ways to humble yourself, to serve others. First of all, I think this is going to be the biggest one, but it's just praying to God, say, like, give me the opportunities to serve, and they will appear. But ones to actually look out for after you do that, it could be something as simple as paying for someone's food at a restaurant or at a grocery store, whatever. Paying for someone's food, helping someone carry something, dude. There's so many different ways. Taking time out of your day to talk to somebody, even. I mean, I think that's a big one. Just conversating with a random person. All of those are, if you're genuine about it and intentional, you can truly show someone the love of Christ and humble yourself in that process.
Man, and that's so big what you're saying about the genuine, like authenticity with it. You're not going to serve for your selfish gain.
Right.
I think like the line of selflessness and selfishness is so hazy at times because it's like, I'm going to take this selfless action, but I expect something in return, low key, like something's going to come back to me. God, you're seeing this, right? Like, you know what I'm saying? And, myself included, like I'm not guilty of that. Like, tithing is a big one that comes to mind when I think about that. It's like, I'm going to give, but it's like, God, like you're seeing this, like here's why, I'm giving. So I think that's something that's big in my life is just, that genuine, authentic heart of giving and of serving is something we so often have to focus on. And I think that comes from the reps in the word and prayer and, continuing to fight that prideful, ego of I need to acquire because I just gave. Like that's that pride talking. And so I think just, really humbling ourselves in that way. But I think paying for food and tithing are such like good, like double, triple edged stones or, 3 birds, 1 stone, whatever.
Yep.
It's because it's you're giving, you're putting God above your money and you're serving. Like there's so much fruit that comes from doing things with your money and abundantly giving. And one thing that I've realized is in the people that I've met that I've looked up to the most, they are the most abundant givers. People that I've looked up to the most in my life give abundantly, like abundantly to the point where you're almost uncomfortable with the amount that they're giving you because you don't feel that you are reciprocating that. Like in relationships, we like to be on the even playing field, right? Like we even experienced this with Christmas. Like, oh man, you got me a gift. I didn't get you anything. Oh shit. Like, like we want to be on this even playing field, even to the point where you sent me something for Christmas. I didn't send you anything, but I was like, oh man, I got you a couple gifts throughout the year. Like, like trying to level that thing. But it's like these people that I've looked up to in this world that are just extremely abundant givers. It's like, that's an example of how Jesus walked. He didn't have anything to gain from us.
Not
He's
at all.
God.
Absolutely.
There's nothing possible to gain from us. Like, and I think I even heard it in a song. Like, what everyone else would see as a curse, like he saw as a blessing. Like us, essentially, like sending his son to die for us. Like, like he saw it as an opportunity and a blessing. It's like he has nothing to gain from us at all. Yet he still sacrificed his only son for us. Like an endless love, forgiveness, grace. Like So I think that that's just an example there of like, and it's been, guys like Nick Anderson abundantly giving to us, to you and I.
Yes.
Like, shout out to Nick. Nick, we could say this, but does Nick have much to gain from us? Just two young guys who are trying to, find their way in this world. I think if we asked him, he would honestly say yes, because he's such a, great dude who would be like, oh yeah, I got so much to learn from you guys, because that's how much he's poured into us. It's just choosing to follow us. It's been so cool to see, but it's just the most abundant givers. It's like Jesus had nothing. God had nothing to gain from giving to us, yet he still does. So an example there. But
100%.
to round this thing out, I know we're closing in. I think we can't talk about pride without talking about the devil. And I think, anyone kind of listening to this who, understands the story of the devil, or at least from what I understand, the story of the devil is, a fallen angel. So I'm doing a little bit of research. The Bible doesn't talk about the devil much, about the story of the devil, how he became the devil.
Right.
So, I would love your take. Like, you know more about the Bible than I do, so I'd love your take of just like, obviously I got a little bit of scripture here from what I could find, but what's your take on just like, I guess the question of how the devil became the devil in the name of pride?
Yeah, without reading the scripture here, just based on my own understanding, the devil originally, he was an angel in heaven. I can't remember his name exactly here. Looking at the scripture, but yeah, he was an angel, and essentially, he started questioning God. He started leaning on his own understanding. He started taking pride, and that led to God essentially casting him out of heaven and casting him into hell for eternity. He said basically, you're going to try to rule here. No, I'm like, that's not possible. You can go rule in hell if that's what you want to do. So he cast him down.
Yeah, that's my understanding. So is this his name? Tyre, Tyre? Is that his name? Or am I just way off with that? Right there in Ezekiel at the top line. Is he referring to the devil there?
It may be. Maybe.
So while you're looking that up, I'll just go ahead and read what we got here. So Isaiah 14:12 through 15, NIV. How you have fallen from heaven, morning star, son of the dawn. You have been cast down to the earth. You who once laid low the nations. You said in your heart, I will ascend to the heavens. I will raise my throne above the stars of God. I will sit enthroned on the mount of assembly, on the utmost heights of Mount Zaphon. I will ascend above the tops of the clouds. I will make myself the most high. But you're brought down to the realm of the dead, to the depths of the pit. And I think something that really stuck out to me is just the amount of eyes in this. Like I said, love versus lust, selflessness, selfishness, pride, humility, selfishness. Like we see that so much. This is all I. You said I would do this. I. So that was a big thing that stuck out to me when reading that. But
man, it's a great point. We're gonna feel dumb, but his actual name is Lucifer. We've heard that plenty of times.
Oh man, we feel so dumb.
Yeah,
people
seriously.
Watching TV shows about that.
Absolutely. Prime example. This was like one of the first recorded ones. Devil letting pride get in the way.
Absolutely, man. I'm trying to think of a verse. Man, I can't remember the verse. I want to say it's a proverb, because I'm just big into proverbs right now. But
yeah.
That said essentially like it's kind of like man plans, God laughs.
Okay.
It's kind of the point of this verse I'm trying to think of essentially like it said like we shouldn't make plans, but it talks so much of like being a good planner. Like it does talk about being a planner, but like it's Lord's will. I think is like what it says. Like you shouldn't plan something about like you should just like pray for God's will to be done in a way.
Hmm.
And it's actually something where I even put out some goals for 2024, some Elevate related stuff, etc. And I put those goals and I put underneath of it like Lord willing. And I can't remember the verse that convicted me in that. It's like it's funny how we set goals and we plan.
Hmm.
Um, you know, Lord willing being a big piece in that. Like Lord's will. If this is in the Lord's will, please allow me to achieve these goals. If this
Right.
is in your will, not in your way, what have you. So that was a verse that really convicted me, and something that sticks out to me from reading this Isaiah passage is just like the plans the devil had. Like it was plans to ascend, above God, whatever, like I. But I think relating that to our lives, especially around the new year of planning goals, like I think goal setting is great. I'm not saying don't plan. The Bible talks a lot about, planning, um, and being diligent in planning. Like it
It
does.
does.
But leaning into the Lord's will, I think, is just such a big piece that we again need to lean onto God with our plans. Like
Hmm.
praying to God, leaning into the word to align our plans with his will as best we can. So I'm just hearing, the devil, I'm seeing that so much of I will do this, I will do this, I will
Right.
do this, especially around this time of year. So that's just something that stuck out to me. It's just conditioning our heart with our goals and what we're trying to achieve, with the Lord's will. I wish I could remember that verse, man.
Absolutely. Yeah, I'm not sure what verse it is. Another thing to touch on planning, and this conditions the heart properly, and you have to humble yourself to do this, of course. But it's Proverbs 16:3. It's commit your actions to the Lord, and your plans will succeed. Like you were saying,
Mm.
like the Bible says tons about goals and planning. Like it's wise to do so, but in the process of that, we must constantly condition our hearts, commit our actions to the Lord in order for those plans to truly succeed.
Absolutely. There's a verse right here that I got pulled up. 1921, Proverbs. Many are the plans in the mind of man, but it is the purpose of the Lord that will stand.
Hmm.
Now, I don't know if that was the verse I was trying to remember, but I feel like it might have been.
Yeah.
Maybe just a different version than I originally read. But yeah, I mean, just to wrap up in our final minutes here, like I think just the closing thoughts of this entire thing is one, as we can confidently say always, Jesus set the bar, the example. And then two, the devil being the biggest example of pride, cast to an eternal hell.
Hmm.
I'm sure he's really regretting that after being in heaven, and experiencing heaven. So, and yeah, I won't go any other paths because we got to close up. But and then it goes back to so much of the selflessness, such as love versus lust, that episode that we talked about.
Right.
Um, but yeah, I mean, humbling yourself, humility, fearing the Lord, which we're absolutely. I think that's our next episode is diving into fearing God.
Absolutely.
But yeah, any closing thoughts for you? I feel like it was pretty black and white, honestly.
For sure. Yeah, I mean, two things that I'm going to carry out of this is just continue to take the lowest seat at the table, and then really lean into the acts of service, like we talked about, to condition our hearts and humble ourselves.
Yeah, amen to that. And as we just close this thing up, like one, I just want to say thank you to everybody for tuning in, listening to us ramble, about pride and humility. These are just, like I said, raw faith, raw conversations where we jump on, get vulnerable, and just share as we just learn and grow and try to develop our understanding of the word of God, of Jesus. So appreciate you guys doing that. And number two, like, let's take a challenge from this. We're all about taking action inside of Elevate. We come out of a Bible studies with action. We come out of calls with actions. So if you're listening to this, like, I want to challenge you guys, like, take an active service, like heading into 2024. What better thing to do to kick off the year, in these first few weeks than to, humbly serve someone else, whatever that might be in your life. Like, I feel like God will convict you with the action, if you ask for it. So ask for that action in prayer and, follow through on that action. But as always, appreciate you guys tuning in. And yeah, next episode might be fearing God. We'll definitely record it here soon. So hopefully you guys will tune in for that. But as always, much love.
Absolutely.